booth. This guy was so mad for some reason because we didn't pull up like close enough and you didn't have proper change. And he's just cursing at me. He was cursing
at us. All over me. He was just upset as hell at me, this toll booth guy. What the hell's wrong with you, you son of a...
Yeah, just because we had not pulled up like exactly. He couldn't reach. So he had to open up the door and then he went to hand him money and he dropped it. And the guy was yelling, I can't believe
you stupid idiot.
Yeah, and so he bent over to pick up the money.
That was my impression for that guy. You know, I left that for him.
Sorry.
I had a similar bad toll booth guy. I don't know what it is with me and toll booth guys. They don't like me.
Well, there's one in Schaumburg outside Chicago was dressed like Elvis.
That was fun. We drove right up to a toll booth, and there's a guy with the whole Elvis imitator thing. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We just kept driving like, did we just dream that or not?
Yeah, he was dressed like Elvis.
Yeah, now we know. He works at a toll booth at Palatine, Illinois, I think. So.
Yeah.
Yes? Well, you guys are quiet.
You guys tell the story about the haunted house in Woodstock?
The haunted house in Woodstock, yeah. That's the reason that I wrote the words for the song Sleepless. Because we were in Woodstock, and as you come down this big winding gravel drive from the studio, there's a big white farmhouse there back in the woods, and that's where a lot of bands stay when they work there. King Crimson was there working on 3 of a Perfect Pair record. And there was one room at the end of the house that you had to go up this little stairwell, and the little stairwell went nowhere but to that one little room. That was my little room, and it had one of those ceilings like this, like kind of like, you know, a loft type thing. And everyone else had their rooms in the house. And we had heard about this idea that other bands had been in there, I think REM and what was there was another couple of bands that had said, this house is haunted. You know, I never really thought about it, but then one night I was laying there in my little cot of a bed and I heard this. I heard, that was up to the top of the stairs of my little door. And hello? Who is it? Hey. So I got up, I opened the door, and there's nobody there. Oh, okay. The next morning, Robert said, you know, I believe there's a spirit in the trees outside. And I said, yeah, I think so. He tried to climb up my door. And then I really did get these, I would wake up at nights and from these really hairy-ass dreams, and like things would be floating in the ceiling, like, what the heck is going on here? So that's why I wrote Sleepless. You know, submarines lurking in my ceiling and all that kind of stuff was my reaction to being in a haunted house. And then the next thing that happened, which I thought was I like this even better, you had to walk this gravel driveway around this big wooded area. And you walked all the way around there and then started the long walk up the hill. Well, one day I thought, well, I just cut across, you know, from here to there, through this wooded area. And I went through this wooded area, and all of a sudden in the middle of it, the grass was perfectly cut in this big circle, and just as though it was a museum site, there were old turn-of-the-century pieces of farm implements placed everywhere. Like, you know, an old plow and an old tiller and all rusted out and everything, but in this sort of manicured area. And I went up to the studio and I was really excited about it. And I went, and I think first thing I did is I ran into one of our engineers and I said, man, you won't believe what I just saw down there. And he said, oh, you know, I explained it to him. He said, oh yeah, the people who worship farm implements. And evidently there's a cult of people who worship farm implements, and once a year they have their little sort of farm implement affair there, and they keep it well manicured otherwise, and you're not really supposed to walk through there.
Adrian, somebody asked me how you met Robert. And I didn't.
How I Met Robert. Yeah. Well, the first time I met Robert really was no big incident or anything. Not much of a foretelling of what was coming. I was at the bottom line with David Bowie. We were there to see a show by a guy named Steve Reich. He was releasing this new piece of music called Music for 18 Musicians, which ironically was very much like what we do. It's, you know, you play a 7 and then the next guy plays the 7 but drops a beat, only this was all on percussion instruments. The lights went up and David Bowie said, "Oh, look over there, the table over there, there's Robert Fripp." I really didn't know what Robert looked like much. I mean, I had been a huge Crimson fan, but I hadn't really seen many pictures and never saw him live. So I said, well, I'm going to go over and say hi to him. So I went over and I introduced myself, and he said, "Oh, lovely, lovely," and sat down. And he said, "We must get together for coffee and or tea, you know, and talk about things." And I said, "That'd be great." And he pulled out a Sharpie and wrote his number on my arm. So, "Well, yeah, I'll be calling you then." And that was how I met him. I actually went and did have coffee with him and everything. And in that conversation, I let him know how much I know about King Crimson. I think he was very surprised that I knew so much, and maybe that's where the wheels started turning. But what happened next was I had a band that I was trying to get a record deal, so we're doing a little touring around the Midwest. This is after I had played with David Bowie, and Robert had a band called the League of Gentlemen, yeah? 4-piece band, no vocals. And we ended up being the opening act for 5 of their shows. And so that was another way that I think Robert saw me playing, knew that I wrote songs, was a singer, dancer, comedian, and all-around handsome fellow. But anyway, I think like the second show we did together was in Cincinnati, Ohio, where I grew up, at this place called Bogart's. Pretty big club, like 1,200-seat club. And the balcony that is in Bogart's was made into an enclosed dressing room. And I went up there, and Robert, you know, I had finished my show, and he came up after his show, and these 2 people came in, and they were... It was a guitar player and his girlfriend, and it was a local guitar player. His name was Tall Dave Brown, because he was a real tall guy like this. And I really didn't know him, but he was saying, "How congratulations, Adrian, I've always liked your stuff." His girlfriend was about this big, so I was saying, "That's nice, Dave. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you." Across the room over there, Robert was there. And Robert was looking at me, and he was changing his clothes, you know? And he kept pulling his pants down and pulling his willy out, going between me. So, and I would be going, "Oh yeah, Dave, I really enjoyed it." And then they would both turn around to see what I was looking at, and he'd be going, pulling his pants back up, you know? And so they thought, what the hell's this guy looking at, you know? And I'm talking to him again, and I'm looking down at her, and I'm looking up at him, and I'm do it again, you know. Holy shit. You know, he's making all these faces behind him going. Got his willy hanging out, you know, and I'm going, wow, okay. Nice to see you, Robert. Didn't realize that we were that close. Let's put a band together. Yeah, that's how I got to know Robert. I know more of him than I care to.
I was at that concert that night, and he broke a string while they were performing, and it flipped up and caught him right here on the cheek, and actually, you see a little drop of blood. He didn't wince. He didn't miss a damn beat. I mean, it was. I was impressed. I mean, shit.
Yeah.
I would have thrown down a goddamn guitar and walked off.
And he was concentrating and thinking what he could do to me after the show. Let me see. I know what I can do. Yeah, with my willy out in front of him. Yeah, really. Yes?
Talk about after that when the band that was originally going to be called Discipline, but then ended up becoming the new version of King Crimson.
What would you like to know about it?
Well, I heard the story 2 years ago, but some of the people here haven't heard that, how that came to fruition.
Well, I'm not sure. Maybe Tony could